I'm Lydia Shearsmith, a visual artist based in Hull. My practice focuses on everyday things and delving closer into the details of things you'd often walk by, looking at the texture on bricks or the way the light passes. It's mainly an exploration just into life and how everything's bigger than you think it is. There's always so many little details into things that you often walk by and don't even realise are there. And I feel like it's important to stop and notice the little things. So like everything's so busy, but then somehow knowing that there's so much complexity just in how the light from the sun hits the world, then that's like the most basic thing of our existence. So if there's that much complexity into that, no matter how overwhelming everything feels, you know you can just look at that and it's a bit of a meditation. I don't like my work to have too much meaning from the get-go. I like it to have layers of it to me, but I feel like everyone sees something different. So if I make a piece of work, I want someone to look at it and ask what it is and spend time with it and build a connection to it and what they think it is. It doesn't actually matter what it is. Like, it don't matter what I saw when I was making it, it's how it makes you feel and what it makes you think. So if it makes you think about, say, the exhibitions looking at the flows and rhythms of life, so the tides, the clouds, if it just makes you think about that more and think about how the world turns around you, then it's doing its job. I feel like photography is the foundation of what I do. So I think like the main points of photography are light, space and time. And I feel like no matter how you're working with them three things, it's still classed as photography because that's the fundamentals of it. Getting into a dark room changed my relationship with photography and made me realise that photography is not just a camera, even though an enlarger technically could be a camera. But yeah, like how you don't have to use a camera, there's camera-less techniques, there's more to it, and finding out that light is its own material. So I think there's just little things that have happened throughout the years that have made me want to keep creating, and also for my mental state. I mean, it's been turbulent years for everyone, but I think finishing uni and then coming back home and going from having so much equipment that I was so grateful for, but then going to the bare essentials and then going out and trying to make stuff. I feel like I've become a lot more experimental in my practice and just really had an interest more in little things because there's been learning, like full-time working and then having a practice at the same time. It's not like when you're at uni and you can spend all day every day looking at it. So I think the way I work's a lot slower and I really take my time over different parts of it, and sometimes that means I go months without even doing anything because life's busy, but then you come back to it and you have a bit more of a natural flow and natural critique as to how you're working. So I think, yeah, it's just evolved slowly and I think I'm a bit more playful with it. I just go out because I want to go out instead of having to go out, if that makes sense. I feel like sometimes you have to work. Sometimes you just have to do it, otherwise you feel like you're going to go crazy, even though you're not actually going to go crazy. If you don't get it out, then you will. And sometimes you pick a camera up just because you feel like you haven't picked a camera up in ages and you feel a bit guilty about it, like I should be doing this. But I think I've got to a nice balance where, especially with creating the exhibition, just finding that I actually do enjoy it more than I think I do, and that it isn't just something I do because I have to do it. It is a bit of a meditation for me to create things. I think it's like I've created a nice medium between ways I've worked before and new ways of working, which is really nice because you don't often get to do that. So the whole installation concept concept derived when I was at uni from a project I did, but then the way I'm executing it's a lot different to then. Before it was a moving image piece, so no one saw the installation, whereas this time the whole thing's the installation, which is exciting. And I'm using moving image, which I've done bits of moving image, but I'd never really incorporated it into how I work. And I don't know why, because I'm really enjoying it. Yeah, it's just naturally come about that it works better with moving image and it gives it so much more dimension and depth. And you really feel like you're part of it, whereas if I was using stills, I think it'd lose a bit of the connection you can feel with it. Throughout the day, the light's constantly changing how you see things, but we're just so naturally in the rhythm of every day that we don't really spend much time noticing it. Maybe sometimes you'll see a sundial and it'll like hit home that, yeah, the light changes through the day. But I always think it's not till night that I realise how much the light changes during the day, because it's all artificial light at night and the shadows are always the same. You go out at any night and you see the same patterns, but then in the day it's constantly changing. So like when you notice how much it's changing, like the definition of everything seems to move, as in structurally the definition seems to be a bit more pronounced and you notice the shapes and lines more. I think illusions probably, in a weird sense, probably defines my work, but it never meant to. It's just the way I've always looked at things. I think we had like a project to look at a photographer who shot through windows and through glass back in sixth form, and it was like the first major project we did, and I think it just transformed me and was like, oh, this is cool, like just adding an extra, it feels like it adds another dimension to the world, but it doesn't. So I think a lot of my work, whether it's cameraless or actual photography or installation, the illusion part of it is the bit that makes people think, oh, what is that? And it creates the connection that I want it to create. But then it's really weird because I know the illusion. I created it. To me, it's nothing. It's just some objects. Whereas to someone else seeing it who doesn't know what it is, then it's an illusion, so it's quite a weird juxtaposition. I always think that the things people say about my work when I've heard people talk about it when I'm there, saying critiques and stuff, it's always, how did you do it? Like, what is it? And then you break the illusion. So, I mean, a lot of the time I'm working with paper or perspex or mirrors. So then I'd say it's paper and mirror, and then someone's like, oh, is that it? And I love that little play of someone seeing it. But even when you're told, sometimes you still can't work it out, which I like. But I also, there's like Player's Cave. I'm just intrigued by that whole idea of whatever's real to you is what you know, or in the allegory. They thought the shadows were reality because it's all they'd ever known. So I think it's quite intriguing to see people look at something and it not be something they've known, so see something completely different in it. I always tend to work in cycles, so I'll create work, and I don't know any better way of saying it, and just rinse it. So I'll create the work, print it, make it physical, and then do something to it that makes it digital again, and then go back to physical, and then go backwards and forwards until it reaches the point where nothing else, it's done. It deserves to be put aside and left. So I think I don't overwork things, but I like to see the transition, because sometimes if I just see something on a screen, it never feels completed. I feel like it needs to be held at some point, even if it's not when someone's seeing it. but something has to be physical. I feel like it's not about like the perspex itself, it's the qualities of the material. So there's lots of varieties of it, which makes it easy to work with. But I think I use it in images a lot to create a sense of illusion, and it's a bit more malleable than glass, so it's easier to work with. So a lot of the time when I'm using it, it is to make something that looks like it's not actually there, but it's still physical. But I think in the Immensity of Being, it's more, the perspex extends the view of what you're seeing, but it also disrupts what you're seeing. Almost creating a puzzle out of the moving image that you can look at, and it'll find itself piecing itself together. But because of the qualities of the perspex, sometimes it's only captured on the perspex. Sometimes it goes through the perspex, you can see it on the wall, but it's also going around the room and transporting around you, enough to be able to see the detail of it as well. So the upstairs part is gonna mirror downstairs. It's using the same materials, but instead of artificial light, it's using the natural light. So first off, sometimes it won't work. Sometimes it's just going to exist as a hanging installation and you won't get to see the light from it. I don't know what the word to describe it is, but I think it's that whole thing with the agency of light. Upstairs is showing, it's trying to make people see the rhythms in that actual moment. So it's to catch people's eye and realise it's happening. You are like instantly a part of it downstairs. You become part of the installation, and it's important that you do become part of it, because then your connection to it's a bit more, it's already there if you walk into it, whereas upstairs it's about you noticing it. I've had the honour of doing a lot of work for 87 Gallery, so an art link. So it's a nice, it kind of feels like it's come full circle, and it's very great to have this opportunity, and just great people to work with who generally care about what happens and create relationships with people that are more than just, I've got an exhibition. Like, you can come in here and work. Like, I'll do it on a Saturday, come and do my work in here or something. But no, just very passionate team of people who make things happen.